What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the 2007-2008 NHL season. Forgot to close my door. Back in just a second. And 5 seconds later, we are back. So, the 2007-2008 season definitely sees the rise of the Hawks. This is the year before I start watching hockey fully. And it kind of starts how every single one of these has started with so far, with Detroit leading the Western Conference. They win the President's Trophy at 54, 21, and 7. Got to write the amount of points they had. 54 times 2 is 108, plus 7 is 115. So there we go. Nashville makes the playoffs once again, 41, 32, and 9, 91 points. However, they are fading fast. Nashville, they were the 8th seed in 2004, and then 2005 and 2006 they're the 4th seed. They can't get out of the first round, or 2006, 2007 they're the 4th seed. Can't get out of the first round, and now they're back to being the 8th seed, and they're kind of falling. Chicago, much better, 40, 34, and 8, 88 points, just out of the playoffs. 94 was the mark, I believe. No, 91 was the mark, so Chicago, Edmonton, and Vancouver were all in a three-way race as well for that final playoff spot. Nashville ends up getting it. So four-team race there. Chicago, much better. Two guys named Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews definitely help with that. Both are Calder finalists. One is a Calder winner. Columbus, 34, 36, and 12, 80 points. A little better. St. Louis has basically the same record as the year before, but Chicago and Columbus both got better, so 33, 36, and 13, 79 points is last. In the Northwest, Minnesota has their only division title, 44, 28, and 10 with 98 points. Colorado, 44, 31, and 7, back in the playoffs at 95 points. Calgary, 42, 30, and 10 at 94 points. Another team that is fading. Edmonton, 41, 35, and 6, 88 points. Bit of a bounce-back year after their kind of just collapse in 2006-07. It would not last. They collapsed pretty much right after this. Vancouver misses the playoffs because Luongo kind of gets hurt, and they probably would have got in otherwise. They're out of the playoffs at 39, 33, and 10, 88 points after winning their division. Then we got the Pacific. Hasn't changed a single team in any of the years that we've done so far. San Jose, 49, 23, and 10 with 108 points. Anaheim, 47, 27, and 8, higher than Minnesota, but still the 4th seed at 102 points. Dallas, 45, 30, and 7 with 97 points. They are fading as well. Phoenix, 38, 37, and 7 with 83 points. LA, 32, 43, and 7, 71 points. But LA will be better. LA is going to get some draft picks. Some by the names of Anze Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Jonathan Quick, Drew Doughty will all be coming into the lineup, and they will get better, much better. In the East, Pittsburgh finally leaps up to the first spot. They're back to where they were prominently, 47, 27, and 8 at 102 points. I believe they solved their arena issue this season. They did end up getting a new arena, saving the team once again. New Jersey starts to fall, 46, 29, and 7 with 99 points as I drop my marker. Now I need to get that out under my desk. Yeah, there we go. The Rangers, 42, 27, and 13, 97 points. Philly, after bottoming out, they're back in the playoffs with a 39-point jump at 42, 29, and 9. The Islanders, they fall back out of the playoffs, 35, 38, and 11 with 79 points. 79 seems to be the bottom total besides LA. There's 3 teams that have less than 79 points. And meanwhile, we have 3 teams under 50 points in today's NHL, or 4 teams. In the Northeast, Montreal just for some reason ran away with the East at 47, 25, and 10 with 104 points. There are 2 teams in the East that are over 100 points. There are 3 teams in the West. But if you look at previous years, points, the league has a lot more parity than it did a couple years previous. There were a lot of teams with 100 points in 2006, 2007. 2008, they kind of calmed down a bit. Montreal, after missing the playoffs, kind of makes the jump, and I didn't realize I didn't make any markers right here. So 47, 25, and 10 with 104. Ottawa, after going to the finals, 43, 31, and 8, 94 points. Boston is finally back in the playoffs as the 8th seed in the East. 41, 29, and 12, led by some guys named Patrice Bergeron, Zdeno Chara. Who am I missing? I don't remember if Tim Thomas was there that year. I thought he was 2008, 2009, but Thomas might have been there. Thomas gets we'll get to Tim Thomas, but he got an unfair cut of the stick from the beginning of his career up until Boston finally made him the starter. Buffalo, after winning the President's Trophy, they lose Briere, they lose some other pieces in free agency that wouldn't re-sign there, and they are 39, 31, and 12, and 90 points out of the playoffs. In Toronto, 36, 35, and 11, 83 points. They kind of see that they're tearing it down after this. In the Southeast, this might be the year that people say this is why they really shouldn't have a division winner be in the top 3. Because Washington at 94 points has the same amount of points as the 8th seed. And I think the 8th and 7th seed, both, Ottawa and Boston both have the same amount of points. Both were 7th and 8th seeds. And Washington has the same amount of points as them. Yes, Washington would have been probably the 6th seed. They had the same record as Ottawa, 6th or 7th seed, if that goes normally. But 94 points for a division winner is not great. And then out of the playoffs, Carolina, still good, still not in the playoffs. 43, 33, and 6, 92 points. Florida, still mediocre, 38, 35, and 9 with 85 points. Winnipeg, 34, 40, and 8 with 76 points. Tampa Bay bottoms out at 31, 42, and 9. After making the playoffs for several years, they made it to the second round. They won the Cup. They lost in the first round. They lost in the first round. And they bottom out, and they get the first overall pick, being Steven Stamkos. You're welcome, Tampa. Will he re-sign this year? We'll see. So that is the standings. Go to the playoffs. Number 1, Detroit versus number 8, Nashville. Detroit doesn't falter. They win that series in 6, although it did look scary there. Nashville did have some comebacks in that series that were threatening, as they were tied 2-2 going into Game 5. San Jose, number 2, takes out and my computer fell. Let me fix that. That's why I can't slam the desk, because I have this posted up so you can see the entire board. Number 2 San Jose goes against number 7 seeded Calgary, and they win that one. In number 2 San Jose beats number 7 Calgary in 7. Jeremy Roenick decided to, in Game 7, after not playing in Game 6, comes into the lineup, has a 4-point night, 2 goals, 2 assists. Looked like he was in his early 90s Blackhawks form in that Game 7. That was probably the greatest game Roenick played in the final stages of his career. Number 3 Minnesota is out against number 6 Colorado in 6. So as a division winner, the one time Minnesota gets nowhere. Number 4 Anaheim versus number 5 Dallas. Number 5 Dallas takes out the defending Stanley Cup champion Anaheim Ducks in 6 games. In the East, number 1 Montreal plays number 8 Boston and takes them out in 7. It is close. Game 7 was not close. Number 2 Pittsburgh going against Ottawa, and while Montreal is a bad matchup for Boston, Pittsburgh's a bad matchup for Ottawa, except in the previous year when Ottawa beat them. But that was Pittsburgh's learning experience. They've learned now. They're a much better team now. Number 2 beats number 7 in 4. They sweep them. In the East, or not in the East, in the Southeast, Washington at number 3 plays number 6 Philadelphia. Philadelphia has one more point than Washington, and they take them out at 7, even though Washington's the home ice team and a division winner. Game 7 overtime, and a trade down here is by a player that made it happen. And then number 4 New Jersey takes out the Rangers. Number 5 Rangers take out number 4 New Jersey in 5 games. So the Rangers get revenge for that 2006 series that they lost to the Devils in. In the second round, number 1 Detroit takes on their number 6 Colorado in the series that everyone wanted to see. If it was a couple years ago when all the veterans were still there. Detroit makes quick work of Colorado in 6. While Sakic is still there, Forsberg is still there, Adam Foote is there, and then you got Osgood is there, Hasek, guys that were there from the late 90s, early 2000s. This was not a series. It was the last hurrah for Colorado and Detroit, and they would never play each other in the playoffs again. Let's see. Number 2 San Jose loses to number 5 seeded Dallas in 6, and I honestly can't believe they lost that series. I look back at that series and I can't believe with that team they lost that series. Of course, Nabokov makes the save of this, one of the saves of the century in that Game 6 in double overtime. But in quadruple overtime, Brendan Morrow gets the overtime. Why can't I talk today? Overtime winner in Game 6. In the conference final, number 1 seeded Detroit goes up against number 5 seeded Dallas. And I know we didn't do the second round for the East. We'll come back to that. But I want to say Detroit went up 3-0 on Dallas. Dallas wins games 4 and then 5 at Detroit. Detroit then blows the doors off them in Game 6. But But in the East, in the second round, number 1 seed Montreal falls to number 6 seed Philadelphia in 5 games, while number 2 Pittsburgh beats the number 5 Rangers in 5 games. So we have a Battle of Pennsylvania conference final. Pittsburgh at number 2 takes out number 6 Philadelphia in 5. Good series. Rough series. That was definitely one that anytime it's Battle of Pennsylvania, it's going to be a rough series. And there were some beatings going on in that series. In the final, number 1 Detroit versus number 2 Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, the young team with Crosby, Malkin, Hossa, Letang's there at this point. They don't have Kunitz yet. That part of their core is not there. Marc-Andre Fleury in net. And they've played how many games to get here? 4, 5. They've played 14 games. And they've won 12. Detroit to get here, 6, 4, and 6. That's 16 games. And they really should have beat Dallas in 4. So it's kind of about 14 games. Game 1 and Game 2, at home, Detroit wins 4-0 and 3-0. Back-to-back shutouts from Chris Osgood, who took over the net in round 1. Dominik Hasek was the starter going into games 1 through 4 against Nashville. Osgood comes in, he takes over, and never looked back, as Hasek would retire after this year as well. Game 3 in Pittsburgh takes that one 3-2, but in Game 4, Detroit wins 2-1. Game 5 at the Joe, they're going to win the Stanley Cup. No, Peter Sikora in triple overtime calls his shot, and he gets the winner as Pittsburgh wins 4-3. Game 6 in Pittsburgh, Detroit finishes up 3-2. I believe Michael Samuelsson had some goals in that Game 6 win. And Detroit wins their 4th Stanley Cup in 11 years, and they never would reach this mountain again. While they were close next year, which we'll get to, Detroit could have won more cups. Detroit could have easily, they probably should have won in 95, but the trap is in its infancy. 96, they were the greatest team at that time in NHL history. 2009, they went to the final and lost. 2006, 2004, any team in that from 1992 to 2009 could have won the Stanley Cup. And they only got 4 out of it. I mean, 4 is a lot, but they could have had a lot more. They did choke a lot as well. They did choke against San Jose in 94, against Edmonton in 06, Calgary in 2004, you could argue, Anaheim in 2003. That was wow. LA in 2001. There were a lot of series that they blew. But in the playoffs, let's get to the playoff scoring now that we're done talking about Detroit. Zetterberg leads playoffs in scoring at 22 games, 13 goals, 14 assists, 27 points. He's tied for the league lead in the playoffs in goals, and he is tied for the league lead in assists. Crosby, or no, he's not, because Cronwall had 15, and he's not even on the board. Crosby had 20 games, 6 goals, 21 assists, 27 points, leads the way for Pittsburgh. Hossa, 20 games played, 12 goals, 14 assists, 26 points. Datsyuk, 22 games played, 10 goals, 13 assists, 23 points. Malkin, 20 games played, 10 goals, 12 assists, 22 points. Johan Franzen, this was Franzen's coming out party. He dominated these playoffs. If you want to see it, I've never seen a more dominant series than Franzen against the Colorado Avalanche. 2 hat tricks, another 2-goal game, and a 1-goal game. 3 is 6 plus 2. They had 9 goals in 4 games. Dominant. 13 goals, 5 assists, 18 points in his 22 games. In net, Osgood 14-4 with a .930 save percentage and a 1.55 goals against. He was excellent, and you could argue Fleury was even a little bit better that year. 14-6, .933 save percentage and a 1.97 goals against, but he did play every game. It's funny because Osgood was fantastic, but I think Fleury was better in these playoffs. Meanwhile, in 2009, when Pittsburgh wins the Cup, it's reverse. Fleury had a bit of a rough go-around in that playoffs, but Osgood was dominant. But that's just how it happens sometimes. Award winners. Art Ross goes to Alexander Ovechkin, who had 65 goals, to at that point was the leading scorer of the 21st century until this season when Austin Matthews scored 69. 47 assists to go with that, 112 points for Ovechkin. So it's going to be Crosby and Ovechkin battling the Art Ross for a while. Masterton goes to Jason Blake for Toronto for beating leukemia. Calder goes to Patrick Kane of Chicago, even though Kane and Taves both accepted the award. Conn Smythe, Henrik Zetterberg, he wins it for Detroit as playoff MVP. Selke goes to Pavel Datsyuk, finally not Rod Brind'Amour, but Datsyuk now is the best defensive forward in the game, and he has 99 points. He never had a 100-point season, he had back-to-back 99-point seasons. The Hart goes to Alexander Ovechkin. The Adams goes to Bruce Boudreau of the Washington Capitals. So Ovechkin, Boudreau, Jason Blankett's on the board for Toronto. Chicago gets Kane, Detroit, Zetterberg, Datsuk. And they also get the Norris with Nicholas Lidstrom. The Clancy for leadership on and off the ice goes to Vinny Lecavalier. Lady Bing for gentlemanly play, of course, goes to Pavel Datsuk because that's his award. Pearson or Ted Lindsay Award goes to Alexander Ovechkin for who the players believed was the most valuable player. Rocket goes to Alex Ovechkin with his 65 goals. Vezina goes to Martin Brodeur. It's another year where I disagree with who won the Vezina. This year, it should have been Evgeny Nabokov. Nabokov was robbed, and he's even on the first-team All-Star. 44, 27, and 6 with a .920 save percentage and a 2.17 goals against for New Jersey. The Jennings goes to Hasek and Osgood of Detroit, and Hasek would retire after the season, a Stanley Cup champion twice. First-team All-Stars, Ovechkin, Malkin, Iginla, and then Lidstrom and Phaneuf on defense. Yes, Dion Phaneuf was that good at that point. Nabokov in net. Second team, Zetterberg, Thornton, Kovalev, and his age is pretty good. Chara and Campbell on the blue line. Yes, Brian Campbell, who would sign a big deal with Chicago, which we'll get to in the next video. And then Brodeur is the second-team All-Star. How are your second-team All-Star, but you also win Best Goalie? I don't know how that works. You see why Malkin's here? Crosby's starting to deal with injury already. We were robbed of prime Sidney Crosby. He had that 120-point season, would never get back to that. 2008 through 2012 was a very dark time for Sidney Crosby's career. Concussions could have really... It's honestly amazing that he's still playing because of what he went through early on in his career. And we were robbed of probably one of the greatest... Seeing a true top 5 player of all time, which he could have been. I mean, he could still be. He definitely could... People would make that argument. But he would be, for sure, a top 5 player of all time had he not been missed... I think almost if not over 2 seasons worth of games for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We can get into trades. June 18th, 2007, Scott Hartnell and Kimmo Timonen are traded to Philadelphia for a first-round pick going to Nashville. That is a win for Philadelphia because Hartnell would be there for a while and be really good, especially on the playoff runs. Timonen, stable on the defense. Blackhawks legend Kimmo Timonen. June 22nd, 2007, Vesa Toskala and Mark Bell are traded to Toronto for a first, second, fourth going to San Jose. San Jose was a goalie machine. They traded off Kiprusoff because they had Nabokov. They traded out Toskala. They were just producing goalies like it was no one business and selling them to the highest bidder. Florida gives them all that for Toskala and Bell. Mark Bell, not in his prime anymore, as now my allergies are kicking in, I see, so I need to pause the video real quick right here before I start sneezing. Sorry about that. But Toskala, what he's remembered for is that 100-foot goal from Brandon Davidson of the New York Islanders. And, yeah, it's understandable why he's remembered for that. June 22nd, 2007 as well, Thomas Vokoun is traded to Florida for 2 seconds and a first going to Nashville. Vokoun was an excellent goaltender. However, Florida, the team around him, was not very good. So Vokoun was kind of standing on his head for a good portion of his time in Florida, including getting whacked in the head by Keith Ballard against Atlanta. That's a clip I remember seeing as a kid, and I was like, what did I just witness? The reason these trades are on the board, there's not many big trades in 2007-2008. For example, in July 1st, 2007, Manny Fernandez goes to Boston for Peter Klaus and a fourth going to Minnesota. I don't remember if Manny Fernandez was the starter in Boston that year. I really don't think he was, because that would be kind of weird. I don't even remember him playing in Boston, maybe because I wasn't watching hockey at the time. But, I don't know. July 1st, 2007 as well. Joffrey Lupul and Jason Smith are traded to Philadelphia for Joni Pikkinen, who was a 4th overall pick at one point. Jeff Sanderson and a third going to what does that even say? Lupul and Smith to Philadelphia for Pikkinen, Jeff Sanderson, and a third going to Edmonton. That's who it was. That goes to Edmonton. I'm not sure why I wrote Philadelphia down here. It's whatever. But that would be a big... Jason Smith, I believe, would serve as captain for the Flyers in those first couple years before Mike Richards got set as the captain. And Joffrey Lupul scores the winner in Game 7 of overtime against the Washington Capitals. Lupul had injury problems. That was his biggest downfall right there. August 11, 2007. This trade, as a Blackhawks fan, really pisses me off. Radim Vrbata is traded to Phoenix for Kevin Adams. 1-for-1. Kevin Adams was a veteran player. Little to no value at this point. Rabada was young, and he would, in the future, score some goals. The Hawks have that on their 2010 roster. I'm pretty sure I'd be pretty happy with that. And I don't know why they trade, maybe because he was asking for money. I don't know. I can't go back in time and tell because I wasn't really paying attention to hockey when I was 2-3 years old. I was 3-4 at this point. But I was 3 years old at this point, yeah. But Rabada, I would have loved to have had him on the team. He was one of my favorite players in the league when I was growing up. And I didn't even know he played with the Hawks till after I knew he was one of my favorite players. October 11, 2010, the Hawks drink the stupid juice again as they trade P.A. Parito to the Rangers for a 7th-round pick going to Chicago. Parito was not worth a lot, but that's a guy, if you have on your 4th line, I'm pretty happy with. A 4th line or healthy scratch, perfect. I mean, he even played some top 6 minutes in his career, and he looked fine. He's kind of reminds me of a Swiss Army knife kind of guy, kind of like Evan Rodriguez. December 14th, Doug Waite, Michael Berner, and a 7th to Anaheim are traded for Andy McDonald going to St. Louis. Interesting one to make because Anaheim was in the playoffs. They go out and get Waite. They also get draft pick and a nobody. And St. Louis picks up Andy McDonald. I mean, I have Andy McDonald's cards with both teams. I have Doug Waite's card probably with, I feel like I have him with both as well. It's just a weird trade for me. I'm not really sure what was in the cooking there. December 18th, this is a trade that Chicago actually wins. Ben Eager to Chicago for Jim to Philadelphia. Vandermeer didn't play much longer in the NHL after this, I believe. And Eager, he scored some big goals. He scored a big goal for the Hawks in Game 2 in the 2010 final. So that's all right. The biggest trade of the year happens on the trade deadline at February 26th, where Atlanta trades Marian Hossa and Pascal Dupuis to Pittsburgh for Colby Armstrong, Eric Christensen, Angelo Esposito, and a first-round pick. Highway robbery by the Pittsburgh Penguins in this trade. Colby Armstrong really never fully developed into anything. Of course, he's on the TNT panel now sometimes. Sportsnet, he's on a bit. But he wasn't a phenomenal player. He wasn't Marian Hossa, who's a Hall of Famer, and Pascal Dupuis ended up playing with Pittsburgh for the next 8-9 years of his career until his career was ended by injury. Eric Christensen was a fringe NHLer. Angelo Esposito, and a first-round pick, which Atlanta's drafting is considerably terrible. So we'll see how that goes for them. There's a reason Atlanta couldn't hold on to talent because they were just in the dumpster, and this was part of the reason why. February 26th, Brian Campbell, and a 7th are traded to San Jose for Steve Bernier and a first going to Buffalo. Brian Campbell goes to San Jose, and I will say he looks very nice in San Jose colors. And he's a pure rental move. He only stays for the playoffs, and then he ends up in Chicago. February 26th as well, Andrew Ladd is traded to Chicago for Tumo Ruutu. I've done videos for Tumo Ruutu and Andrew Ladd on this channel, I believe. So there's a Hawks win this deal going away. Ruutu was very good. He wasn't very good. He was good when he was in Chicago. But Ladd was obviously the experienced veteran. He had won a Stanley Cup. He wasn't old at this point. He was still pretty young. And he ended up playing a pretty good role as a checking forward, depth scoring for the Hawks in that 2010 run. February 26th, Sergei Fedorov is traded to Washington for the rights to Theo Ruth going to Columbus. I mean, Washington wins this one, obviously. It's Fedorov. I mean, even though he's old, he's mentoring a young Alex Ovechkin, and he'd do that the next year as well. February 26th, Cristobal Huet is traded to Washington for a second-round pick going to Montreal. Washington's goaltending was unstable at the time. I honestly don't even know who they had in net at this time because Kolzig was... I think Kolzig was out by this point, if not... I really don't know where Kolzig was at this point because his career was over by injuries at this point, I think. And they bring in Cristobal Huet, and that's another one that does not stick around as he ends up in Chicago as well. And then February 26th, Washington also brings in Matt Cook for Matt Penninger going to Vancouver. Matt Cook, one of the worst players that the NHL's ever had, and I have no respect for the guy. February 26th, Adam Foote is traded to Colorado from Columbus for a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. He's obviously old at this point, still good on the blue line, didn't play much longer in the NHL since he'd already been playing for a long time in his career. But those were really the biggest trades I could find in 2007, 2008. Free agency wasn't that big either. I wrote down every notable name I could. Dustin Penner goes to Edmonton in a restricted free agency move, and Brian Burke was pissed. Brian Burke was livid because they couldn't. Anaheim could not match the offer that Edmonton gave Penner, and of course he's going to accept it. It's free money. Martin Jelena still playing, signs with Nashville. I only wrote that one down because I couldn't believe he was still playing at this point. Jason Blake goes to Toronto. Peter Sikora goes to Pittsburgh. Big signing there. Mike Pecco, near the end of his career, goes to Columbus. Todd Bertuzzi signs in Anaheim. Curtis Joseph signs in Calgary. Nearly stole the series. Kiprusoff was not doing well against San Jose, and Curtis Joseph was, yet Mike Keenan was the coach of Calgary. He refused to start Joseph for whatever reason. Chris Drury signs with the Rangers. Jeremy Roenick signs in San Jose after tweeting that he was retired, and then his agent coming out and saying, no, he's not. Michael Hanzuf signs in LA. Scott Gomez signs with the Rangers. That's a signing. Richard Zednik signs in Florida. I mean, and Gomez wasn't too bad with the Rangers, I don't think, until near the end, and then he ends up in Montreal, and his career kind of fell off fast. Richard Zednik goes to Florida. Robert Lang goes to Chicago. Brian Rafalski goes to Detroit. That was a very good signing by Detroit. Radek Bonk goes to Nashville. Peter Forsberg signs in Colorado halfway through the season, as does Darren McCartney go back to the Detroit Red Wings for one more run. And although he does play in 2008, 2009 as well, but near the end of his career, why not? Danny Briere, big loss for Buffalo, 95-point man, signs in Philadelphia. Part of the reason Philadelphia gets better. Ryan Smith signs in Colorado. He doesn't go back to Edmonton. Paul Kariya still playing at this point, signs in St. Louis. Bill Guerin signs with the New York Islanders, becomes captain. Owen Nolan signs with Calgary. Dania Zuber signs with New Jersey. Ruslan Fedotenko signs with the Islanders. And Dan Ellis. Only reason I mention him is because he nearly stole that series against Detroit. He was phenomenal in the games 1 through 5 of that series. But that's the 2007-2008 season. More of an uneventful season. Everything kind of went as planned, to say the least. Not many big trades, not many big free agent signings. Awards were pretty predictable. Standings were a bit up and down. I did forget to write this dot next to the name, like Washington was in, Tampa was out, Atlanta was out. Funny, the two teams that made the playoffs in that division are both in the bottom of it the next season. But, I believe that's it. 4 teams into the playoffs, and then 3 teams. Something's missing. Oh, I forgot to do one for Buffalo as well. All those teams that get dots were in the playoffs or not in the playoffs, and they switched being in the playoffs to not in the playoffs or not in the playoffs to in the playoffs, if you did not know. That's going to be all I have for you guys. And this one I've rambled on enough. 28 minutes right now, and it's been a lot of talking. So I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Have a good one.